I want to talk to you very quickly. What are the challenges we really face in our time? The first one I hesitate to talk about because it's not a subject I like to often get into. But, a few days ago, I was, somewhere in, I don't know which country I was in, somewhere overseas in Asia. It's about 10 days ago. And Ruth on our staff sent me a lead article in a student newspaper, in one of the leading newspapers in the leading universities of this country. When I read it, I started to cry. I said, I can't believe what I've just read. I cannot believe what I've just read. And then I thought to myself, how did this even come into my email? There were so many four-letter words sprinkled through it in the crudest form of sexual indulgence. From autoeroticism to polyamorous relationships, name it, it was there. And this young gal who's writing in a newspaper as a student, verbally voyeuristic, telling everything of all she does and all she's done from the time she was a young teen. Is this why you go to a university to graduate with letters against your name? To tell everybody all the struggles you have in your private world, only not talking about his struggles, but in a cavalier way of indulgence and sexuality. And so it is, oftentimes, the Dawkins and the other in the world will tell you what it is they're really hostile towards in the Christian faith. It is because they consider us morally repressive and restrictive of this kind of indulgence. I want to say to you something. I became a Christian at the age of 17. I played cricket for my university. I played cricket in a local club. I was very competitive in sports. I didn't know a single Christian on my cricket team or my hockey team. They're all Hindus, Muslims, Buddhists. Some of them may be. Not one of them would have read that article and found comfort or inspiration. They would have all said, this is bizarre and perverted. But the Christian faith takes the hit for it. And so what we are really living with at this time is a kind of sensually driven culture that has actually come to believe that you find your nirvana or your moksha or your salvation in indulging in this body in any form you want to indulge. You will find happiness in it. Yet read the life stories of people like Ernest Hemingway and others who ultimately lived out to a total life of impotence and found that the most frustrating part of them was that the very thing they lived for had nothing to give for them anymore. This is what we're up against. We're up against a young culture that has spent itself and exploited the human body to a point of, we all fail. As young people, we all struggle. We all think there is some hope in something. And where you talk to people and you see they come away empty-handed, disconsolate, guilt-ridden, and pained by all of the things that they indulged in. And yet you go to the intellectual bastions, and that is their answer for nirvana and hope. And so it was in 1974 when Malcolm Muggeridge resigned from the University of Edinburgh and gave his farewell address there at St. Giles. This is what he said. So, dear Edinburgh students, this may well be the last time I address you. And this is what I want to say to you, and I don't really care whether it means anything to you or not, and whether you think there is anything in it or not. I want you to believe in that this row I have had with, it all had to do, by the way, at that time in the 70s, of handing out condoms free to the university students. And so he says this, I want you to believe that this row that I have had with your elected officials has nothing to do with any puritanical attitudes on my part. I have no belief in abstinence for abstinence's own sake. No wish under any circumstances to check any fulfillment of your life and being. But I have to say to you this, that whatever life is or is not about, I think this is the line that I love so much. Whatever life is or is not about, it is not to be expressed in terms of drug stupefaction and casual sexual relations. However else we may venture into the unknown, it is not, I assure you, on the plastic wings of Playboy magazine or psychedelic fancies. This was a man who'd lived on the other side of the tracks and is telling the young, it's not where you're going to find it. Whatever life is or is not about, it's not about casual sexual relations and psychedelic fancies. And yet we've got a whole generation moving in that direction. All over the world. One of my favorite professors in my graduate days was Carl F. H. Henry, one of the most brilliant theologians, American theologians of years gone by. I remember in one of his books he said this, and I wondered, wow, this is something for Henry to be saying it. I wonder why he's saying it this way, but he did. He said this in his book, Christian Mindset in a Secular Society. Biblical truth, transcultural as it is, has an indispensable message for contemporary culture. It addresses modern learning, modern ethics, modern political, economic concerns, and all the idolatries of our polytheistic society. It proclaims the gospel to a generation that is intellectually uncapped, morally unzippered, and volitionally uncurbed. Those who consider the latest fads permanently in will, of course, dismiss the Christian message as the last hurrah of an antiquated outlook. They reveal their sickness of soul by derogating terms like morality, piety, family, work, patriotism, born again, evangelical theology. Christianity they dismiss as a kind of middle-class hedonism, declaring it intellectually inadmissible. They meanwhile espouse a life that neither reason nor conscience or spirit can support or condone. Repression of sensuality or self-gratification they call psychotically abnormal. Subordination of the flesh they leave to medieval monks or consigned to the future resurrection. Affirming sexual pleasure to be the supreme good of a life of unending revelry, they waste away into ethical ghosts and skeletons. So it is. So who we got railing against our president? Hollywood. Hollywood has hardly been a symbol of puritanical virtues. The only time they criticized too much violence on the screen was when Mel Gibson's movie came about on the crucifixion. They said that was too violent. That was the first miracle that movie attained, by the way, getting Hollywood to think it was too violent. Wasting away into ethical ghosts and skeletons. We are living at a time where our children and grandchildren are going to be told they make their choices on all of these matters. There are no absolutes, nothing at all to which they need to get anyone else's advice or permission. There is the indulgence of the physical, but there is then the seduction of the intellectual. What has happened is not so much that people are driven in this direction. We all struggle, we face these issues, I realize that. But the intellectuals today have railroaded this thing and commandeered relativism into a camp where anybody who believes in any norms and any absolutes is considered unfit for contemporary society. That they are dinosaurs, they ought to be gotten rid of. And yet I'll tell you what, our team will tell you when we go out there and speak, and even on these matters, the young people, especially the young women, are listening with riveted attention. They know what you are saying is right. They just don't seem to have the power and the will to honor that. I remember two young gals at one of the leading universities. Vince was with me. He'll remember this very well. The gal came up right up to the platform and she was asking her question, and we knew what her question was and what her lifestyle was and what she was driving to. But she was extremely respectful. She had gained our respect in the process and was raising her question. And I could see the tears going down her face as she was asking her question about her personal struggle. And Vince did a marvelous job after I finished answering. And then she asked if she could come to the back and speak to us, she and another young gal. And there they were with tears running down their face, admitting to what it was that their real battle was. And then paid us the great compliment and said, would you two men mind if we took our pictures with you? And there they were, standing next to us, of a completely different worldview, completely different habit in life, knowing that they didn't have the answers, but desperately needed it through Christ, as we had the privilege of praying with them. This intellectual hijacking of hedonism today and giving it some credibility. So you've got the marvelous minds in all these halls of learning who are so relativistic and hedonistic in their pleasures and so anti-Christian in their approach. Paul Johnson, in his book Intellectuals, probably overstates it somewhat, but he makes his point. One of the principal lessons of this tragic century, which has seen so many millions of innocent lives sacrificed in schemes to improve the lot of humanity, is beware of intellectuals. Not merely should they be kept well away from the levers of power, they should also be objects of particular suspicion when they seek to offer collective advice. Beware of committees, conferences, and leagues of intellectuals. Distrust public statements issued from their serried ranks. Discount their verdicts on political leaders and important events. For intellectuals, far from being highly individualistic and nonconformist people, follow certain patterns of behavior. Taken as a group, they are often ultra-conformist within the circles formed by those whose approval they seek and value. That is what makes them en masse so dangerous, for it enables them to create climates of opinion and prevailing orthodoxies, which themselves often generate irrational and destructive course of action. Above all, we must at all times remember what intellectuals habitually forget, that people matter more than concepts and must come first. The worst of all despotisms is the heartless tyranny of ideas. It was the French philosophers, the French intellectuals, who drove ultimately till splendor rode hard, or till victims were riding hard on the backs of splendor and so on, and might became right, and all of the words and the guillotine and all that came about on the heels of so much intellectual rejection of the absolute and the value of ultimate human life. And so we have the attraction of the physical, the seduction of the intellectual, which brings me to my closing here. We really have to have three very simple responses. They have been addressed. So I'll just mention the first two and apply the third. In our mission, why are we here? Why are we here? What does this organization exist for? Why do our churches exist? What is my life amounting to? Why does RZIM exist? As it turns out, within a few days, I'll be celebrating my 71st birthday. Entering your 7th decade of life is a grim reminder that you're closer to the finishing point than to the starting point. You recognize the years have gone by so quickly. So I ask myself the question, what is it now I want to focus upon? There's something within me that prompts me to say, your work is done. Your work is now done. You have labored hard for over 4 decades in the vineyard. Shut the suitcases, sit at home, go down to your desk, write, enjoy the family every day. Oh, it is so attractive a thought. But then I look at the world around me and I say to myself, what is my mission in life? What did God call me for? Why did He rescue me from a hospital bed? I look at it and I say, it is to be in the arena where the battles are being fought and to try and win the best of the youth today to change their world and to change the world to come. And I believe we are going to see it happen. We are already seeing it. Abdul Murray is here. For us to be at Michigan State University on a weeknight with 9,500 in attendance, and the basketball game suffered in attendance because the kids were attending this open forum. And the lineup, and the lineup, and the lineup, and the questions, and the questions, and the questions. What is my mission? Number 2, what is our method? Our method is to lock eye contact with people and tell them we love them. You know, one of the best things about knowing Os Guinness is telling people that you know Os Guinness. And now I ask you this. There are worlds of scholars who'd give anything to have 2 hours of his time. To have a mentored leader like Edmund Chan, in demand all over the world, for him to take 72 hours just to come and spend 24 hours of each flying from Singapore here just to be with us because we're friends. The people who long to be with them. We meet people eyeball to eyeball. We are in their arena, and that's what shocks them. That's what shocks them. Our method will always be to be the light and to be there in the darkness and be there eyeball to eyeball. I cannot tell you the number of letters that I get from young people who say, well, there's one here just today who was talking to me saying, I struggled with my faith. Your program came on at just the right time and rescued me. That's our method. We will love people. We will value and treasure the gospel, and we will remind them it's the only way to change life and to find redemption and hope and build a secure home for the future, our mission and our method. And lastly, it is our message. What is our message? Our message is very clear. For God so loved the world, that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him should not perish but have eternal life. You know, Billy Graham, if he lives to the end of this year, will be 99, I think. He was born in 1918. Yeah, he turned 99 in November. He set his face like a flint. My dear friend Cliff Barrows passed away recently. He lived here for some time, and we used to have wonderful times with him. Dr. Graham fulfilled his mission as an evangelist. God has called us as this team. We've got the Luthers, we've got the Zwinglis, we've got the Calvins, we've got the Melanchthons as part of this team. World changes. Some of the young women and the young men in this team amaze me with the humility of heart and with the depth of their knowledge. We've got the same message and the same ethos. A whole team goes to a place, and people look at this team and say, I don't believe what I'm seeing. Such a diversity of cultures, ethnicities, intellectual rigor, but same compassion and love for people who've come to know Jesus Christ through this team. And so I close with a very simple illustration. This building is great, and we look forward to thousands coming through it. I will hardly be here except when I'm here to teach. I'm gone most of the time. To many of you, I want you to know I haven't been to every floor of this building myself. It's true. When people ask me, I just came here yesterday and lost my way. I couldn't find my car. I went in the wrong direction. I'll tell you the truth. These things don't mean anything to me. They really don't. What it means to me is that there'll be a place that people can come where there'll be a light on to take them away from their darkness. That's what this is all about. Several years ago, when we were in Delhi, we'd finished a long series of trips. One thing about Margie, she may pray a lot for me, but she keeps me praying a lot for her too. She's lost her purses in more places than ought to be allowed legally. So we're in Delhi. We're taking a 1 a.m. flight, and about 10 p.m. at night, she's getting ready, and she says, I can't find my purse. I said, you got to be kidding me. I said, when did you last see it? She said, I don't remember. She said, maybe when we were out shopping in the afternoon at 3 o'clock. We ate at a roadside cafe in Delhi at 3 o'clock. And that was the last she'd seen it. It's now 10 p.m. in Delhi, and we've got to catch a flight. She said, my papers, my passport, everything is in there. That's right. You talk about, So we get into my friend's brother. I said, take me to Connaught Place. He said, what? He said, they close about 8 o'clock. They're all gone. I said, take me to Connaught Place. So we get into the car because we're going to go to the airport from there. Why? I don't know. She didn't have her papers. So we get into the car and we're driving, and we arrive in this dark street called Janpath, which means the path of the people. There are hundreds of shops back to back, all in darkness. Everything in darkness. And my heart is beating. And we arrive closer and closer to where this roadside cafe was. I said, drop me off here. So I get off and walk about 20 paces, and there's a tent wall. I open that and I look, and there's a light on. I said, I don't believe what I'm seeing. So I walked over towards that light, and he stood up. He said, Saab, aapke liye thehar rahe hain. Sir, I've been waiting for you. He said, 3 baje se thehar rahe hain. I've been waiting for you from 3 o'clock. He said, we ran after you, but you got into a taxi and went. Mem Saab, madam left her purse. I said, I know. He said, because of what was in there, I knew you would come back. I said, I'm amazed. I said, thanks for leaving that light on and staying here. I said, what can I do for you? He said, just one thing. I said, what is that? I thought he was going to ask me for money. He said, just write me a letter that this was lost in my restaurant and you came back 7.5 hours later and I was here waiting for you and you found it. That's all I want from you. Next year we went back to Delhi. I went to that restaurant and behind his little chair is my letter pinned on that. He had the light on in a very dark situation all around us. What hope a little light can give when what you've lost is very precious for you to find. RZIM will keep its lights on. We will have a light on here in a dark world that's sensually driven, that's intellectually gone wrong. But the fact of the matter is we know what the mission is, we know what the method is, and we know what our message is. But without you, we can't do it. And you are a living proof of why it is we are all here even tonight. May God richly bless you. And I just want to close by saying this. The most important aspect of this event was not this building. It was for us to find the right leader. And when Vince and Joe accepted our call, I knew the deal was closed. I had to get Michael's permission because he's a strong force at Orca with Michael and Amy Orr Ewings. So Michael, thank you so much for sparing Vince and Joe. They're going to be an amazing bright light in this place. Tomorrow we'll have a time of prayer for them and their whole team. But to know that somebody like the Vince is at the helm gives me the greatest peace and the greatest fulfillment to know that a young man of his caliber, his intellectual rigor, and his passionate heart for evangelism will be directing the program from here. That is almost like a father and son's heart relationship, to know that it'll be in good hands. So we need to pray for them, that they will stay the course. Vince, come and pray for us in closing now. Thank you, and God bless you.
You've been watching Let My People Think with Dr. Ravi Zacharias. We're grateful for your prayers and financial support. If you'd like to know more about this ministry or would like to donate to our efforts, you can call us at 1-800-448-6766 or visit us online at www.rzim.org. You can also stay connected to RZIM through Twitter and Facebook. Our mailing address is RZIM, Post Office Box 1820, Roswell, Georgia 30077.
What is our message? Our message is very clear. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him should not perish but have eternal life. The fact of the matter is we know what the mission is. We know what the method is, and we know what our message is. Without you, we can't do it. We will love people. We will value and treasure the gospel, and we will remind them it's the only way to change life and to find redemption and hope and build a secure home for the future. RZIM will keep its lights on in a dark world.